Hey everyone, and welcome back to Not the Newsletter Show, where we talk about cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, and everything technology, covering things that we can't cover in our regular newsletter. So I'm here again with Noah Wiley. Thanks for joining me, Noah.
Absolutely.
Today we have some awesome things to cover, so let's dive right in. The first thing we're talking about is Chrome, right?
Is that what it is? We can talk.
Sure,
about
yeah.
Chrome.
I feel like that's...
Have you heard
that's a good
about?
start.
Do you know about Google's?
I do know
legal
about
troubles
Google.
recently. Yeah.
Legal trouble. I feel like they're always having legal troubles. I don't know. How
Is that what happens when you're just a mega corporation?
Yeah, you're a big target when you're that size company. Yeah.
Exactly. Recently, though, so Google's latest trouble, as of like 7 days ago, was that the Department of Justice recently just ruled that Google is holding a massive monopoly over the search market. Which let's admit is true.
Sure.
When you don't just search things, you Google things. Like it's the verb. Like that's just the default. It's been the monopoly for a very long time.
Right.
But Department of Justice is saying that that's wrong. They can't do that anymore, and is now requiring Google to divest, or essentially, from my understanding, sell sell Chrome.
Sure.
To, I'm assuming, some other third-party entity. Yep. I guess I don't fully know.
We could throw our name. We could throw our name in the hat, right?
Technically, I guess so. Yeah. So
pennies on the dollar.
The DOJ, long story short, is basically forcing Google to sell Chrome, because basically Chrome kind of feeds into the Google search algorithm for like marketing data and stuff like that, and more targeted ads towards you. If you use Chrome, know that your stuff is absolutely getting tracked. I mean, almost any browser kind of tracks your stuff too. You have to know what you're doing, but
right.
They think that that's a monopoly, so Google is required to sell it. Obviously, Google is trying to fight it, saying like it's not fair and it's going to get extended, and it has not been confirmed yet or decided on yet, but the quote unquote the door is open that Google might have to sell Android, like the right to like their proprietary like
Mobile
ruling,
software, yeah.
right, on Android.
OS. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's also part of this same lawsuit, or these are different things?
From my understanding, it's all related to
all the
big,
sort of monopoly.
Yeah, exactly.
And why then is Apple up next? I mean, they have a monopoly on iMessage. Is that not going to be a thing that's...
I feel like, so don't quote me because I haven't necessarily read on it recently enough to be able to like talk about it super accurately. I know, Apple did have their own DOJ issues. I feel like it wasn't as extreme as this.
Sure.
Like it's not like, I feel like this is almost akin to them being like, you need to sell iMessage. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I feel like this is one of those things where you just tie these up in court with your attorney forever, right? Until it just goes nowhere.
1,000% going to happen. Like nothing's going to happen anytime soon.
Right.
Yeah.
That is a big ask, though, to be like, hey, this is how your company started. It literally is what made them who they are.
Yep.
For them to come in and be like, yeah, you can't do this anymore. It does seem weird. I mean, I guess hopefully it's good that they're keeping the consumer's best interests in mind, but it seems like a weird ask.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of scrolling down the article there where they kind of link to some other Verge articles here, but Google is absolutely fired back, saying like this is extreme and ridiculous and like not fair. So like you said, it's gonna be nothing's gonna happen with this for years.
Yeah, it would be. I mean, it's kind of like the intellectual property that got you off the ground. It just feels like, yeah, interesting.
It's on your. Oops, I can't apparently click a link on your note about Apple. Super quick. Apple still has their own antitrust thing that they're trying to basically just, like you said, everything gets held up in court. They're trying to hold it from going into court. So
actually, next week, Tuesday, doesn't work for us.
Yeah.
To go to, can we do that? Can we just schedule another court date? Well, our next one's not for 6 months. Ooh, yeah, that's probably fine. That's probably a little better for us.
I love it. But I mean, yes, I mean, Google's obviously not the first tech company to be under the target.
Yeah, these
DOJ.
things almost feel like clickbait to me, right? It feels so weird. You're just like, this isn't a thing. There's just no way that like it would make you guys sell Chrome.
Yeah. And who do you sell it to? Oh, and then another thing that I don't think we mentioned is once they sell Chrome, whenever that would happen, if it happens, Google is then not allowed to re-enter the browser market for another 5 years. So they couldn't just make a Chrome 2 or what, they wouldn't call it that, but they couldn't make another just their own. Okay, fine, we got rid of Chrome. Here's our new one that everyone's just going to go flock to.
Right.
It's basically just Chrome. They're not allowed to enter for another 5 years.
I imagine you'd sell the intellectual property rights with it, right? So you wouldn't. What would go with would be all the information. It's not like you're going to be able to keep your.
No, not like that. Yeah.
So you'd have to start over. You'd have to build 100%. A new browser from the ground up with just the smart enough people that.
But they just couldn't start, or they couldn't release anything for 5 years.
Right.
Which is
but
crazy.
I imagine your people would go with it. So the Google Chrome people that know the stuff and the ins and outs of all that would go with the sale. So you'd have to find new crew and yeah.
Well, there's even Google employees who like are going to the DOJ like
Right.
asking for like, hey, we need like protection on stuff like this. Like, if you're just gonna do this, we need to make sure that, like our jobs just don't get like destroyed and everything,
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
you get sold to Safari, and they're like, "I already have a guy that does this. Like, and
Right.
I don't need you. I don't need
Exactly.
another one of these guys that do this exact thing, or 25 or whatever the number might be."
right, exactly. So we'll see. I think the odds are not that I'm not gonna say to bet on anything, but I think the odds of this happening anytime soon, I think is 0.
Yeah,
I don't think Chrome is going
agree.
anywhere anytime soon.
No, I could see it becoming something that happens in just a few years, though, right?
Could be, yeah.
Year and a half, too.
Maybe.
How long these things take to turn into something?
I don't want to make this like a big like legal debate because I'm not super good at that. There's no if the DOJ makes a ruling on this, there's no way that Google can somehow win against that and like
I don't think so. No.
win. Like that's just the final. They're just gonna push it off for as long as they can, right?
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
unless
if
if a different or they push off long enough that different administration like drops it. I don't know how that works. I can't.
I don't either. I wouldn't think you
asterisks.
could. Otherwise, if it was a thing they just could ignore, they would just do that, right?
Forever.
If you could just, if you're just like, I don't really care. I would imagine they just make your life fairly miserable, right? I mean, if you're like,
Probably.
just, I would imagine they would just throw some sort of thing like, fine, you're not a registered firm anymore. Like, you can't file for taxes and you can't get any
Right.
discounts. You can't employ people and you can't. I'm sure they would, whatever the
Put a
know,
chokehold on you.
yeah, whatever the failure point is for not being an antitrust
Yeah.
something. I'm sure it's not good.
So I won't be surprised that now, closing thought, now that both Apple and Google have kind of been suffering from this, I wouldn't be shocked if Amazon's and like the other massive
Right.
tech startups from 20 years ago who are now biggest corporations on the planet who have a very locked in thing what they do. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more to come of more companies getting under fire from the DOJ.
Right. And could you not just take your company and just start splitting it? Like, fine, like if this
Yeah.
branch has a, CEO, maybe they don't have a CEO at that level, but like if there's a, vice president in charge of Google Chrome, like could that guy just become the owner or the CEO? It becomes publicly traded still, and it just becomes a different company.
Yeah, does that still? You're right. Yeah, that's why I was wondering too. Like, doesn't that meet the requirement? And then
Right.
what's the difference?
It's just different. They move their office down the street.
Just
and-
Google Chrome LLC.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Incorporated LLC.
Yeah, right.
Um,
I don't know. So we'll see.
yeah. Because it's publicly traded. So what? They do an IPO and yeah.
Surprise of right now for the
That-
for the
that's not-
audience,
that's
for all of
nothing.
us.
Yeah.
We're probably not. No, it's not. Probably for the rest of us though. It's
Do an
probably-
IPO for a thing that already exists on the public market. We're going to sell it again.
That'd be incredible. So I'm assuming right now it's probably not like a super alarm bell things, but your Google Chrome might change in the future.
Yeah. It might be Safari.
It might be Safari, maybe. I don't think the DOJ would like that either, but we'll see.
Sure. Yeah. Probably not. No. They have much smaller of the market though. So
That's true.
man, that would make me angry if Google like sold it and then Apple bought it. Right. Like that would be
shocking.
That'd be hilarious.
I mean, it'd be hilarious, but also be kind of sad.
Guys, I don't think we solved this problem.
No, no, just maybe made it bigger. Add into the other lawsuit. But anyways, yeah. So long story short, in conclusion, Google might have a new future coming up.
That would be hilarious. It'd be interesting to watch that. Now we should switch over to Apple, give them some love.
Speaking of which, yeah,
Talk about the iOS 18 stuff that's going out there. Some of this was new to me, actually, of
yeah.
what they're doing.
Do you know what this is or no?
I do know what iOS 18 is.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you at least know that since you've made videos on it.
I did, yeah.
I was gonna say if you didn't know that and you're just spreading misinformation, we might have to talk about that. We don't do that.
Just
here.
reading things verbatim from the internet.
Ask Copilot make me a newsletter about iOS 18.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
would
care where
fail
you get it from.
that would fail miserably.
That'd be pretty bad.
Yeah, we did it last year. I shot a newsletter in May or something, or April,
Oh yeah.
and I had Copilot.
Wasn't it pretty
somebody,
bad?
It was really bad. It was like not even.
Very
Well,
uncoherent.
it was not even close to accurate from the timeline. I'm like, hey, give me a newsletter from stuff that happened last month, and it was like,
Oh.
SpaceX launched a rocket, and I'm like, man, that was years
forever
ago. It was
ago.
forever ago. Yeah, so I don't know.
All right, but then what's new in iOS 18? So obviously, I can't recall all the stories because there are many, but Apple and this sounds bad out of context. Apple and the FBI, police departments, whatever, have not always played nice. Long story short, basically, let's say you get arrested for whatever, and you have an iPhone, and the police department, officers, law, whatever, wants to see something on your iPhone because it's relevant to whatever. But they can't unlock your iPhone because Apples are very hard to break into, and it's they have really good encryption and everything's like tied to you and everything like that. So you need either the PIN or like Face ID or Touch ID if your phone still has that. and they haven't really found a way to break it yet. They try all the time to break it, and then Apple just fixes it.
Right.
So
yeah, there's definitely been articles or news
yes,
outlets where they're like, they still have so and so's phone, and they're still waiting to try to find ways into it, and it just
right,
yeah, it's just sitting there
exactly.
holding up the case.
So there's many things of like Apple and the FBI, Apple and the DOJ, or maybe not the DOJ, but Apple and the FBI and other law enforcement like going at it when basically they're asking for backdoors into iPhones, and Apple's like no, and Apple's actually won a lot of them. Like when it gets like the Supreme Court level, Apple has actually won because it's like
Sure.
well technically yeah.
It just seems weird that a subpoena doesn't cover that, right? Because like someone could come to my front door with a subpoena and then go through the paperwork in my
Anything,
house
yeah.
and do whatever, right? So it feels weird that you can't do that with your phone. Be like, hey,
I have wondered that.
here's a subpoena. Open your phone.
I don't know. Yeah. I think that, well, okay, yes. I think
I mean,
that is true.
they
but I
steal
think
people's computers out their house, right? Like they raid your house and steal your
Take all
computer
of
and
it.
take the data. So I don't understand why this is. So if I like encrypted my computer at home, then they'd be the exact same scenario where they'd be stuck with it.
I think so, yes. I think the problem is that, like, yes, they could do a subpoena against it, but then the person's just like, no, which obviously then you get in your own legal trouble. But then the problem is they still can't get into the phone, so they still have to try to figure out a way to
I
do
see.
it.
So
And then-
theoretically,
then
these
they
people
go
are
to,
supposed to be following the rules, and they're just not.
right, and then they'll go like, hey, Apple, unlock this phone for me, and Apple's like, no. And then that's where it ends. And then
Ask
they're like,
the end user.
yeah, literally. That's actually how it goes, and that's why. But Apple's won a lot of those. So now, circling back to iOS 18, new iOS update that came out a while ago that we've talked about, but they add a new security feature. So, long story short, if you have an iPhone, if you ever realize if it, you reboot it, update it, or you let it die, the first time you log into it or open it, whatever, unlock it, you can't just do Face ID or Touch ID. It'll say like PIN code or passcode or number code, whatever it says required before the first time you re-unlock the phone again.
Right. I think it says Face ID is locked by PIN
That,
code or something. to
like that.
effect,
It
yeah.
says something like that. That I never really actually knew up until recent. I knew that was a thing. I never knew why it was a thing. Actually, it's a security feature in iOS, which has a hilarious name, BFU. I don't know why that's a funny name to me, but it is. But it basically just means before first unlock. And what it is, it's an extra security feature that they don't really go into details about what super it does, but basically locks down a bunch of other like services and other things that would run on the iPhone before you actually first unlock. So for example, Face ID and Touch ID will not work until you first unlock the phone. The idea behind that is and what's also happened with some law enforcement agencies, whatever, in the back of the scenario we're talking about is let's say, I won't use your name because that could also be taken out of context. Let's say someone gets arrested and the officer wants to see, or someone wants to see what's on the phone. Places or agencies have tried to force the person to unlock the phone with Face ID, like hold the phone up to the person's face, like unlock it, whatever, stuff like that.
Just close one eye. I think it's all it takes, right?
Yeah, because it has like attention awareness. If you don't have an eye, it will block it. So point being, but it's which is a whole nother like civil rights thing that's been going on that I won't get into right now. But the idea behind this is that if the phone has just been rebooted, you can't do Face ID, Touch ID, whatever, won't activate, and a bunch of other like services in the background won't turn on for like security. Apple doesn't say what that is.
I think it will get angry and go into that mode if you've tried Face ID a couple times and failed. Like your eyes are
That
closed,
too.
and if it does it a couple times, it'll be like, ooh, Face ID is now locked again
might
by
not be
PIN.
you.
Yeah, right.
Exactly, that too.
Because my kids will take my phone and try to like, oh look, I'll take a picture of Dad and find it on the on the Google Home and like try to do whatever, and inevitably it locks itself into that same mode because then
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same premise.
Yeah.
So now a new thing though that iOS is doing is basically that if let's say you have a phone and let's say like you get arrested, whatever, your phone gets taken to evidence and it's just going to sit there for a while. Who knows how long it's going to sit there? Some departments it might be a couple hours. Somewhere it's like a massive one. It could be, who knows, days, weeks. Who knows? I have no idea. Point being though, iOS will now do a thing where it's an inactivity reboot where basically 4 days, if a phone's been just sitting there for 4 days, you don't touch it, it's going to force reboot itself and then go back into that BFU mode again. I think from my understanding, again, Apple won't really talk about it. The idea is, again, like if it's just like sitting there, it's to help just protect users. So that like, whole thing I was talking about before, forcing someone to use their biometrics to log in.
yeah.
They do a lot of stuff like that. I can't list all of them because I don't remember it off the top of my head and I don't want to say anything that's wrong, but Apple has been very siding with the user on a lot of things. Like their advanced, what was it called? Advanced data protection, where it's like end-to-end encrypted, where like only your devices know what the day is. Even Apple can't see it.
Sure.
Law enforcement did not like that. They're like, that's not fair. What if we need to get? And Apple's like, doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, Apple is yet again doing more security things that helps you, but not to be cynical, that does help you if you're a criminal, which feels weird to say, unfortunately. But security is good, I guess.
Just don't be a criminal.
Yeah, that's too.
Yeah.
That too.
That's the advice for the day. Be an outstanding citizen, and we don't have to worry about any of this.
You heard it here first.
Mm-hmm. Right here. We're breaking news.
Breaking news. So long story short, yeah, just more interesting. I thought it was kind of interesting because I knew that iPhone will do that. It'll go into like this mode that you can't lock it. I genuinely didn't know why though. I never really thought about it.
Right.
I didn't know it was like a purposeful security feature. So
right, and it sounds like it's getting better in these newer releases even.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, especially with the like automatic reboot. That's interesting that it sort of does that.
Yeah, someone just
To
found it
protect
like in
you.
the code of the new update. So
Yeah, I had that up a second ago.
oh, you did
Yeah.
you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like a, yeah, okay.
Yeah, the inactivity reboot
Nice.
code. Yeah,
What's next?
pretty awesome. Well, I think the thing that's next, obviously, we say that we talk about AI in this thing. So I was reading an article that
So we have
said
to talk about it.
we must. Yeah, it's
Every episode.
required. But that a significant percentage of the data that's going into LinkedIn now is coming from AI. They're estimating somewhere in the range of 54%, which
You told me that a couple minutes before we started. That genuinely, I'm not even joking. That blows my mind.
right. It's kind of crazy to think that. It's I guess the idea is that like, hey, all these like cool things that we think are happening in LinkedIn that we're like, oh, these are awesome. They're going viral and like so, whatever it is, they're maybe being just AI generated things just to be like just content, machines that are just dumping stuff into LinkedIn.
Which I mean would kind of make sense because like I mean I don't spend a ton of time on LinkedIn, but I'm on LinkedIn fairly often. A lot of it does really seem like a lot of the content is very long form, multi-paragraph like posts,
Right.
and they do feel like I'm not gonna say that like oh that one's absolutely AI because I don't know, but a lot of them weirdly do kind of feel like they follow like that weird AI cadence of
Sure.
telling that weird feels. I don't know. I've not tried the AI thing, mostly just because our posts are usually very short on LinkedIn. So I'm like, I don't really need AI to write a post that says, hey, here's our new newsletter. Like that sounds extremely
Right.
lazy.
Yeah. Yep.
But then I guess what would I say? What's not what the concern is, but what's like the takeaway of this is that just AI I won't get like super into it, but like there's the whole thing of like the dead internet theory, which is basically just by like a certain year, very soon, 2028 maybe, like 90+% of all content on the internet is just going to be like AI, and it's going to be very hard to find anything that was like originally humanly made.
Right. Yeah.
And I think this is just exacerbating that problem. It
I
proves
think
that's
that's
true.
yeah. I think that feels like the takeaway for me is like
Right.
you go to LinkedIn and you're like, oh wow, that person came up with a really smart idea. This is really cool. I like what they're
Right.
thinking here. Like this seems like a I don't know, and maybe it's about their business, or it's promoting them or whatever. And you're like, oh man, that's really good and cool, and like it's amazing that they're doing these fun things or these amazing things or whatever. And and you just worry like how much of it is accurate or true. And
Genuine,
obviously
yeah.
AI is not even that accurate. So if someone was like, hey, make me an AI post about the donation
Right.
food drive thing we're doing this week, who knows what's in, if you just copy paste that thing into something, like who knows how accurate it even is to what's happening sometimes, because AI is wrong a lot.
Does LinkedIn give you a warning? Do we know if something is AI written? Like, does it have a little caveat next to it? Do we know?
It must not, because how would they know? Because if I just did something in ChatGPT and then paste it in there.
Well, no, but I think this might be also referring to the fact that like if you buy LinkedIn Premium,
Oh yeah, it doesn't.
it
LinkedIn
has
Premium
its
does do
own
that. Yeah.
AI, like,
Right.
that I think both sides are true. What you just said, if you take it from like ChatGPT, Copilot, whatever, yeah, how would it know that's AI? I mean,
Right.
maybe it could find
Right.
it, but I don't think it'll know.
If that's true, then this number is bigger than 54%.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
If 54% is coming from their premium,
like LinkedIn's feature. Oh my gosh, how big the number could? Oh my, I don't even want to think about how big the number could actually be. You're right. So both things are true. Yeah. So I guess the sad part is like, yeah, I think your point exactly. Like, and especially LinkedIn is supposed to be this network of like, I don't know. Everyone always jokes that it's the Facebook of business,
right?
or the business Facebook, which it kind of is. But it's basically just a way to like connect with other people like in your industry or in adjacent industries and like whatever, like help facilitate a more connected economy, like industry, like
Right. Well, that was, I
sense of
think that's
whatever.
kind of the design of social media, right? Is it was
overall, yeah.
like, I really like the way this business operates. They seem very like sociable. They seem very like connected with stuff. They want to teach their customers. Like a lot of those things make you want to work with the company or hire
Exactly.
a person, or a lot of those things is kind of the point of LinkedIn, right? So if a lot of that just becomes not human generated, then
What's the point?
yeah, then it does feel weird. You're just like, okay, who who
What is
wrote
real?
this? Like what? Yeah, exactly. So I hire a person thinking that they're really smart and whatever, and they've just been using Chat GPT the whole time.
Right.
That does feel.
I think that's kind of like the main like concern.
It feels sad.
It does. It yes. It
feels,
does actually make me kind of sad,
Yeah.
especially when I have to like explain it to someone. I'm like, ooh, especially when I say this out loud, this sounds very like dystopian and bad and like
Right.
not cool. Like, I don't know.
It's one of those things where we've said it tons of times. I think AI has a great uses, and I
Yeah.
think there's also things where people just misuse it or overuse it or do whatever. And this maybe feels like one of those where
Yeah.
we're using sort of a social media platform, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's like okay,
But no one's actually social because no one's actually writing the things.
right, which doesn't feel social.
No,
So I don't know.
everything's a double-edged sword, I guess.
Right. Yeah, because I like the idea of AI helping us get some ideas or helping
Yeah.
us research things, or it's getting access to large quantities of data and then giving us a nice, concise
Right.
picture of something. Because then that helps to kind of get the ball rolling and some like things. I think that's really useful in some of those cases, but I think sometimes we misuse it. It's kind of like those, it's book reports or things like that. I was
Yeah.
like, I know these things are going to start getting misused, where kids are just going to be like, write my entire report for me. Like, I don't want to have to do it. Sad.
I mean, speaking of the DOJ, I think in the next coming years, there's going to be so many like lawsuits, restriction or regulations, I should say. Which as of right now, I still feel like there's very, very lax. Like
They are very lax.
there's
Yeah.
like nothing.
I feel like I don't know the name of the guy, but there was someone that was very key in sort of the initiatives that got AI into the market. And I feel like when they retired, do you remember that article of that guy? He was like,
I remember the guy. I don't remember the name.
we need some regulation here, guys. Like,
Yes.
I see this going somewhere, and I don't see that we have like good boundaries yet as to say,
Guardrails,
like,
yeah.
like where is this okay? Where is it not okay? Where, like, what's the limit to sort of where we're going to try to put this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't make any, then
Stuff happens.
stuff happens, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. I was talking to someone recently that I even feel like it's maybe happening in the high schools where teachers are just like, sure, use AI,
Really?
which is weird. Yeah, I feel like even at the high school our kids go to, like, I feel like some of the teachers have said that, like, first day of school, like, we know you guys use AI, like, that's fine. Like, in an English class.
Is the point of that supposed to be like, okay, when you go into the workforce, which we're trying to prepare you for, like you might as well learn how to use it, right? Is that the point?
I have no idea. But yeah, not a ton of guidelines either necessarily. Just like, yeah, it's okay, go ahead and use it.
Does the school have a good way to check like how much of it was written with AI though?
I don't know how you check that.
I don't know, not a clue either. I just remember when I was in school, there was a way to check for plagiarism.
Sure.
But
But if
that's
AI sort of
different.
thought it generated itself, is
could
it
skirt
going
that.
to regenerate it again exactly the same way? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, are you going to get like 2 or 3 papers from kids on a book they read, and it's going to just almost be exactly identical? It's like, yeah.
I weirdly think no, because I was doing something ironically up in Copilot today, and I don't remember why I was doing it. I was rewriting the same prompt like 3 times. The answer was the same, but the verbiage it used was massively different.
Massively?
Yeah.
Really?
For at least for this one specific 2 or specific things I did, but it was like it looked.
I mean, it should be. I mean, that is
theory, it should be. Like,
yeah.
the information was the same, but the formatting, I don't really want to say like the vernacular used because it was more or less consistent in the way that it talks, but the formatting, how it laid it out, how it like expressed the same ideas was like wildly different. So I'm like, ooh, okay, so maybe, I don't know, maybe that was just a fluke in the way that I did it, because I have gotten it to repeat things before.
Sure.
So I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a kid and you're like really lazy, and you're just like, I want to do my English paper and it's due tomorrow, I haven't started for a week. You know, what's going to stop you from just rewriting the same Copilot or
I don't know. Yeah, that's
ChatGPT
what I'm
script
saying.
10
Yeah.
times.
And then I think the kicker for me is if your teacher told you that was cool, and then they're like, you turn into the thing, it's the same as so and so's, then you'd be like, yeah, you told me to use ChatGPT, so I did. You know, like what's the motivation now to read the 1,000-page book? It's got to be pretty low.
Oh, I mean, it was already low enough for me when I was
It was really
in school.
low. Yeah,
I didn't
exactly.
have any.
It was really low. Yeah. And even now, even if you didn't want to read it, you probably could get the thing to summarize it and then just almost put it in your own words and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe that's kind of what they're expecting, but
Maybe.
rewrite it, and then if you read it, the 15-page version of what the AI wrote about it, at least you're learning a bit about it and something. It's interesting, yeah. I think that might be time to
Regulate a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my just like closing thought on that, and I another thing where I remember the thing being said, but I don't remember who said it. I feel like it was at some like conference thing that we were at about Copilot, where he was this guy. I wish I could remember his name. I feel bad now. He was a cool guy, but he knew a lot. He was kind of big in like the AI world, and he like had some. He worked with He didn't work for Microsoft. He worked with Microsoft to do some things AI related. I don't know if this is ringing a bell at all.
Yeah.
His standpoint was that AI would not, because there's always the fear that like AI is going to replace all these jobs, which it maybe could in like 30 years. I don't know. Who knows? His stance was that AI is not going to replace anything technically, but the people who know how to leverage AI are going to replace the people who don't.
Yeah.
And I don't know if maybe that's also maybe what like schools are trying to prep people for. Like, hey, learn how to utilize AI now so you are competitive later.
Right. So you're more likely to get the job than someone that doesn't want to use it?
I don't know.
Maybe.
Just a thought. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if anyone
And
necessarily
again, it's the same thing as now, like a screwdriver, AI is a tool, right, that we're going to use to do a good job or make something work, and not necessarily the thing that does your job.
Right. Yes. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So you still have to be.
I think a little
Good to know how
AI
to do
flag
it.
on stuff would be kind of cool, right? Go on LinkedIn or somewhere like AI, just like a subscript, just like little blue logo AI. So you just would know, like, okay, like
That I think would go a long way.
Right.
I feel like that's very.
I think it would force people to start writing things themselves, right? Like I feel like it might. We're on like everything's nostalgic right now. Everyone's like, oh, like all these old things and old designs are coming back in cars and whatever, right?
Yeah.
I think it would almost push people back to be like, you start realizing that everything's being generated by AI. You're like, man, I really miss
want
it
for
when
something
like
real,
I really
yeah.
miss it when something I just didn't see the AI tag on everything in LinkedIn. Be interesting to see.
It would be interesting to see.
You can have that idea for free, LinkedIn, if you want it.
Shouldn't have said that.
Oh yeah, they're going to do it tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's going to make them no money though, so that's fine.
Yeah, probably. Cool.
A $0 idea.
Any closing thoughts on that? Or are you good?
I don't know if I have any closing thoughts. Do you have any closing thoughts?
Not the way I already said. Just
Stay real out there.
yeah, be careful what you read, which I feel like is all of it. But
Yeah. Be careful what you read.
yes,
Yeah. Use the AI for good things, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. All right. Take care, everyone.
see you.